Hello, everybody, and welcome to the annual meeting of the WPLC, Wisconsin Public Library Consortium. We're here in Wisconsin at the Eagleside Hotel. I'm David Krantz, Chair of the WPLC Board. We also have with us Melody Clark from the Project Management Group of Wills, and Sarah Gold is also with us. Is there anybody else who I should be introducing or no? Okay. Excited to have you all here. 2021 was an exciting year for overdrive usage in Wisconsin and Libby usage. So I'm excited to hear what is going to come up in the annual meeting here today. Go ahead, Melody.
All right, well, before I begin, I just want to do a couple logistical things. For those of you that are in the room, I'm going to send around a little sign in. We just want to make sure we get the attendance. So I'm going to pass that around if you wouldn't mind filling that out. If you are trying to connect to the internet in the room, the little table tent is wrong. We tried to correct it. It's welcome 22. And then I just wanted to check in. I know there's quite a few people online. Can you hear us okay?
Hey, I think it sounds great. Thanks.
Awesome. So, well, I just want to thank Nicolay, because we are using all of their equipment. We're using their owls, which are really adorable and exciting. So, so thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started with the WPLC annual meeting. As David mentioned, I'm Melody Clark. I'm one of the project managers with Wills. And as you can see on the screen, or hopefully on your screen at home, today's agenda, we have three main topics that the board wanted to review today. So we'll be looking at some kind of year in review stuff, some data, some usage, look at some technology committee work, talk a little bit about some new committees. We'll also review, as we typically do at these meetings, the initiatives, the ongoing initiatives, and the proposed initiatives by the Collection Development Committee. And then we'll also talk a little bit about some digital library impact stories and give an update on some coming soon stuff. All right. So first of all, we'll jump into just a year in review. So last year, 2021 was a record-breaking year for the digital library. We had a, like I said, record-breaking 7.2 checkouts of the digital library. That is, I think. Is that a question? I think maybe that was just background. Maybe these are so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to back to the circulation. So we actually had an increase of about 4% from 2020 to 2021, which is incredible considering from 2019 to 2020 we had almost a 20% increase. So to maintain that, it is amazing. I think in 2018 it was 5.1 million, 2019 was 5.9, and then we had the big jump in 2020 to 6.9, and then last year to 7.2 million. So really high usage. We're in the top like 6 or 7 in the world for circulations as far as consortia go for overdrive. We also had about 200, almost 215,000 unique users within the collection last year.
Thank you.
That is about, that was just background, right?
Yeah, but somebody must not, if you're not muted on your home computer, you might want to mute yourself.
Hold on, I am going to do something real quick. Jen Chamberlain is on the line. She is unable to attend, but I'm making her co-host so she can hush people now.
Oh, okay.
She has the power,
right?
All right, so again, back to the unique users. This is still a good number. It's about on par. Last year, we saw a really big spike in unique users and new users because of, well, 2020, 2021 because of the pandemic. But so this is, like I said, on par. with our typical years. The other thing we wanted to talk about was we did add a new collection in 2021. In February of 2021, we added magazines. So the magazines, it was about a collection of approximately 4,000 titles. They saw about 230,000 checkouts. And the nice thing about the kind of advantageous thing about this particular collection is that it's simultaneous use. So that means that multiple patrons can check a title out at the same time. And the selection committee is doing a fantastic job of purchasing those simultaneous use collections whenever they can, because those are really beneficial because it helps increase patron satisfaction. So this is one of those collections that offer the simultaneous use. And you can see here out of the price that was paid, cost per use was about 32 cents per use. All right, so that takes us into looking at, technology committees. So if you'll remember in 2021, well, the end of 2020, new technology committees were, two new technology committees were created for the WPLC. There was is a technology, see if I can get this right, a technology collaboration steering committee and a technology operations technology collaboration operations committee.
Well done.
Whew. And then we have two more we'll talk about later that are even a little bit more complicated. But these two committees have been meeting for about a year now, and they're working on some exciting projects. And we actually have one of the members, Melanie Mercier from Bridges Library System. She is a member of the Technology Operations Committee and a board member, and it's going to give us a quick overview of the projects that the committees are currently working on.
Okay, the Technology Operation Committee is currently pursuing 3 different projects, as you can see on the screen. The first is a statewide purchase of deep freeze software that most libraries use to essentially wipe a computer back to its original state after a patron uses it. And it will help with patron privacy and virus malware attacks. And with all these projects, we've been creating a survey that we sent out to all the systems to see what they're using, what interests they have in each one of these projects. The second project is a cooperative purchase an authentication project. It's the third one on the screen. Specifically using proxy, we're looking at getting reduced pricing for all libraries and systems. And finally, we're researching the implementation of either a statewide purchase or management of a data dashboard for libraries to obtain real-time data for decision-making and reporting purposes. For all these projects, we've put into place a procedure for determining the worth of pursuing by using those surveys. If there's enough interest, the operations committee deems it worthy to move forward and a project is identified. And work typically research, vendor identification, demos, or trials are set up. The operation committee also presents this work to the technology collaboration steering committee for their approval of the project. Overall approval and budget approval is ultimately done by the committee.
Thanks, Melanie. So yeah, those are 3 exciting projects that committee is working on, and that leads us to new committees. So the board approved 2 new committees last year: the Digital Archives Backup Collaboration Steering Committee and the Technology Backup Collaboration Steering Committee. So these were added to provide a governance structure to 2 already existing backup projects. Both of these committees will meet quarterly. Members of these 2 committees are consist of representatives of the project host sites and representatives from current and potential project members, as well as a DPI representative. And then the Digital Archives Backup Collaboration Steering Committee also has a Recollection Wisconsin representative on that steering committee. So Vicki Till Lovely is here from South Central Library System. She is, South Central is one of the host sites for these projects. Vicki is a member of the Technology Collaboration Steering Committee, as well as these two new committees. So she is going to give us a little bit of background about these projects and how they made their way over to WPLC.
Thanks, Melissa. So one of the things that we did at the Technology Collaboration Committee was write up the history of how we got here. So I'm going to do a very brief synopsis of this. So in spring 2018, IT staff from several public library systems met several times to discuss collaboration, and this was in response to our technology proposal. We spent a day in Sheboygan at Monarch, and at the end of the day, they identified problems that we're trying to solve, and really there was one: equity of service to libraries. And under that, figuring out how to provide opportunities to libraries with outdated equipment, software, providing or offering the same suite of services to all libraries across the state, infrastructure that's not visible, and services at the front line that are visible. And recognizing that not all libraries need system provided technology services. And then the work began to figure out how to do the above. So the long-term goal of providing standardized solutions to create economy of scale. And they started by picking one service to offer on a statewide basis. They actually ended up picking two projects. One was to create a shared backup solution, and creating a group purchase portal with Dell to order PCs. The purchase portal with Dell happened pretty quickly, and it's been pretty successful and helpful. The backup collaboration project has not been as quick. It took a year from spring 2018 to spring 2019 of a group of system IT people working together to select the Dell backup solution. And also backing up digitization archives got thrown into that project as well. So in spring of 2019, there were surplus LSTA funds, and DPI offered to fund a large portion of the project. And so we had money, which was pretty unexpected, and it went from there. And here we are today. As of now, there are 5 systems actively backing up to the shared backup solution, and several more are in the process of being onboarded. And then the next phase will be to partner with Deselection, Wisconsin, to implement the digitization archives components. And there are LSTA funds for that project. DPI has continued to be generous with LSTA to support this project. At the same time, the road to the governance began, and that started with a formula of a memorandum of understanding between participating systems, and that still stands. And initially, Surla was charged with creating a governance structure, and there was a work that meant to study this, and it was decided to pass it over to WPLC. And then I'm sure there were many more meetings and discussions. And eventually we got the first 2 committees that have been meeting for about a year. And then the Technology Steering Committee decided that we would have a committee to oversee the backup collaboration and a committee to oversee the digitization collaboration. So we've had 1 meeting of backup, is that right? And the digitization is yet to meet. But the purpose of those 2 groups is to continue to look at governance and money and things like that for each of the 2 projects. The 2 projects are integrated together. However, there will be different systems participating in each one, so that's why they were split up. So that's like 3 years of history in a few minutes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vicki. And as I was thinking, as Vicki was speaking, I forgot to mention, we will have plenty of time at the end of this presentation for any questions or comments or anything anybody in the room or online wants to share or ask, project managers or board members. We've got steering members here, steering members online, all 3 different steering committees, 4 different steering committees, excuse me. So we will have plenty of time for questions as well. But that then takes us on to our initiatives overview. So again, we want to, every year, the collection development committee goes through a process, and creates a list of initiatives. And Sarah, actually, my colleague Sarah Gold is here, and she is going to give us an overview of where we're at with all of our current ongoing initiatives.
Thanks, Melanie. So the WPLC Collection Development Committee identified 3 areas to focus on for this year's recommendations. They are enhancing the juvenile and YA collection. The overall collections diversity and accessibility, and then to increase the amount of the buying pool for 2022 to the use demand of the collection. So the YA and juvenile collections had their collection budgets remain flat for many years because the usage of the collections didn't warrant an increase. However, then the pandemic hit and the usage of all materials increased, including the juvenile and YA titles. So the Collection Development Committee recommended a review of both collections to identify gaps in titles and subject areas. Oh, sure. Usually not told that. to explore and reallocating some of the collection budget funding. A usage audit of both collections was conducted in late 2021. And $10,000, which works out to about 15% of the buying pool increase, was reallocated to juvenile and YA collection budgets. A new selection area was created for juvenile nonfiction in January of 2022. Another goal of this initiative is to prioritize reducing hold times for materials designated for children and teens. To accomplish this, the Lucky Day collection includes copies of high demand juvenile and YA titles now. And then we also have a holds manager, a series of holds manager carts that are running weekly that identify juvenile and YA titles that have a 5-to-1 holds to copy ratio. And then finally, the project managers are working with Overdrive to run reports to review and assess the materials usage on a regular basis. So we are doing some exciting work to support increasing the diversity of the content in the Wisconsin Digital Library by titles, authors, and subject areas. And included in the support, it was a diversity audit that was conducted by Overdrive initially in 2021 to identify some areas for improvement. Another audit is, selectors are now using, so we analyze that work with the selectors, and they are using the results of the audit to shape their decisions or selection decisions going forward. We are going to follow up with another audit in July to measure the mid-year progress, and then we'll do another one at the end of the calendar year. Another project that we're working on is developing the deselection or reading process. Reading, as you might imagine, is often overlooked in a digital collection because titles live virtually rather than taking up shelf space. So to begin the process, this is it's quite a overwhelming process when you think about it. And we have sort of dipped our toes in this before, but we're actually making progress on it this year. So excited. To begin the process, we did do an audit of all the automated carts in Marketplace that are set up to identify titles with holds. We added a process that is done by Overdrive monthly that identifies titles with holds that are no longer available for purchase. When an alternative copy is identified, it goes into a cart, and then we as project managers order it. And then Overdrive it transfers the holds from the old copy to the new copy. The old copy is then readed by Overdrive, and it's really a seamless transition for patrons on the patron side. And then future work regarding deselection includes reviewing titles in specific subject areas to make sure that the titles remain accurate and relevant.
And then finally, we're really excited about the third initiative, which is the creation of a diverse collection support toolkit, which consists of modules with tools and resources to assist with diverse materials in all areas of collection. Take a look at that. Next. So here is an example of one of the monthly blog posts. Laura Damon Moore, another one of the project managers, has been working on this. And these are actually pushed out to selectors in the form of a blog post. And they include, every blog post includes a plan of action, resource guides, and then tips actually from selectors. The whole project resides in the WPLC selector. Okay, and then finally, a very important part of maintaining the health of the Wisconsin Digital Library is to address the need for adequate funding for materials on an annual basis. And an increase in the buying pool is warranted by the fact that, as Melody was saying, Wisconsin's Digital Library saw a 16% increase in usage from 2019 to 2020, as well as seeing a large increase in users to the digital library. In 2020, the Collection Development Committee recommended to increase the budget by a fixed amount based on 5%. And a 5% increase, which works out to about $66,000 plus each year for 5 years. This commitment to sustained increase in funding is such a great way to support the collection and the consortium. And as I mentioned before, the collection budget allocated 15% of that, or $10,000 specifically to the YA and juvenile collection development. I am going to now turn over to Melody to talk about some of the proposed initiatives for 2022.
Thanks, Sarah. So again, I'm just going to talk briefly about the proposed initiatives that will be going to the Digital Library Steering Committee for their approval. This year, there is 4 main areas that we're going to be looking at. So the first is exploring new content formats. This really kind of includes looking at possibilities of different formats like on the screen, music streaming, possibly video streaming, electronic newspapers came up, perhaps digital book kits for young adults or youth, book clubs, and so forth. This process will also include monitoring the statewide cooperative purchasing efforts that are already in place, like Badger Link and what is being offered there, what isn't, that type of thing, as well as monitoring the Simply E and Palace project. That's something that WPLC and Wills have kept an eye on for several years. That really is an app that's for patrons that aggregates multiple or content from multiple places into one space for patrons for them to access. So if we were looking at adding formats for content from someplace other than Overdrive, it might be important for us to also look at something like the Palace project or simply something that would aggregate all of those things into one app for our patrons. So the second thing that the Collection Development Committee is recommending is this is kind of essentially a continuation of what Sarah just talked about. So this is still looking at the youth collection, but really doing a continued analysis. What happens this year? They're recommending, let's take a look at everything that happens this year, look at the money that's been put into that $10,000 and assess that collection, look at the user need, and then potentially, if needed, enhance it further. So this is a lot of these initiatives tend to be multi-year. And so this year, we're just trying to make sure that these are still as part of the initiatives that include an assessment piece. So this one, again, is the same as before, a continuation of basically a review and an evaluation of the deselection process that Sarah was just talking about, that the selection committee is working on right now. So it's this is as Sarah mentioned, it's a big project, and this is something that's going to be ongoing, and so we want to make sure that after it's been put in place, that we have either an annual or some sort of ongoing evaluation process for it to make sure that it's doing the things that we need it to do, and that we are keeping up on maintenance of it. So then finally, again, the committee is recommending an increase in the buy-in pool. Again, looking at that, as Sarah mentioned in 2020, they had recommended a 5% in roughly a 5% increase over 5 years. So again, they're affirming that for the 2023 budget. I will include in when I send out the slides of the recording from this meeting, I will include the recommendation document, and it does have a lot of supporting information from the collection development, just stats, patron survey, library survey, that type of thing that support the increase. So next, what we typically like to do, the digital library steering committee is heavily involved in this process. So they're kind of the ultimate decision maker. As a reminder, they're the ones that manage the digital library. And so the collection development committee really works closely with them. So they've already seen a draft, they've seen 2 different drafts of the collection development recommendations or initiatives. And they've had a chance to comment, and we actually have Abby Armour here, who is a digital library steering committee member, and she is going to just share with us some of their digital library steering comments, and then just she'll talk a little bit about the process and how this all works.
So the Digital Library Steering Committee has reviewed the recommendations and only had 2 minor concerns with recommendations that Melody was just talking about. One of the concerns was that the research into new formats was too ambitious. So there was a long list of tons and tons of formats, which is awesome, but that's a lot to undertake in 1 year or 2 years. So the group made a suggestion to change that recommendation on exploring various format options and availabilities to what it is now. The second piece of feedback was to involve juvenile, juve and YA librarians to obtain their feedback on the juve YA usage and the need for expanding and using that bump in the budget. So that was added to the recommendations to action as well. To give the membership a quick reminder / overview of the annual recommendation process as it currently stands. The CDC, the Collection Development Committee, starts drafting the recommendations in October every year. The board and the steering committee suggest topics for discussion of the recommendations. CDC sends out an annual patron and staff survey in December and then draft the recommendations. The recommendations then go to the steering committee for review in February, which is what we reviewed in February. They provide feedback and, the steering committee provides feedback and sets suggestions for change. And then the collection development committee takes that feedback, incorporates it, and updates the recommendation, which then goes back to the steering committee, where they review the updated version at their April meeting and can make additional suggestions and changes. The recommendations are then presented at the annual meeting, like here. And then the steering committee will approve recommendations at their May meeting. This year it is on the 19th, so May 19th is our next meeting, and then the board approves the budget at their June meeting.
Thanks so much, Abby. It's a complicated process because it goes back and forth so much, but we've over the years have built it in that way just to kind of build in checks and balances and make sure that the whole membership is on board with the process and with the initiatives and the budget. So it's been working out pretty well over the last couple of years. So, all right, well, that just takes us into kind of our next or final portion of the stuff to share today. And we wanted to share kind of some stories. So the board had thought it would be a good idea to collect some digital library impact stories. So we sent out a form that libraries can fill out. And we'll still be kind of promoting that and collecting and gathering these stories. We hope to have, we'll get all of the stories, and we'll put it on the website at some point. Here are just some examples, and again, if you can't read that from where you're sitting or maybe online, I'll send out the slides after the meeting, and we'll also put them on the website. But it's just a collection of little stories on how both staff have noticed an impact or worked with patrons that have been impacted by the digital library. We've also taken snippets from the patron library survey that Abby had mentioned that we do annually. And so there's lots of good data. So even though we know some of our patrons may be frustrated with wait times and so forth, there are a lot of really, really grateful patrons and stories. So we'll be sharing those out as well. But now we also want to share just a couple of upcoming, kind of coming soon things. And I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah.
And I am speaking on behalf of Jennifer Chamberlain, who I cannot take the credit for all of the work that's done for the bylaws work group. Really shout out to her and Laura David Moore for their work on the bylaws work group as well as the committee members. And a huge thanks to the bylaws work group for all of the time and thought that they put into a thorough review of the WPLC bylaws over the past year. As you have heard in this presentation, WPLC continues to grow, and the consortium's bylaws needed some revisions to better reflect those changes and new opportunities. Some of the more substantial changes include the addition of 2 new definitions in Article 1 to allow for the broader definition of ongoing services, largely prompted by the new technology collaborations, and the addition of affiliate organizations for WPLC projects that have adjacency with non-WPLC partners. Another change clarifies the WPLC board's commitment and helps define a process to hold board meetings in accordance with open meeting laws. Most of the remaining changes were either intended to move specific committee processes or formulas out of the bylaws and into the committee governing documents, keeping the bylaws a little more higher level and from falling out of date. The revised bylaws have been presented and discussed among the board, and the final version will be presented to the board for a vote of approval after this. So, as probably all of you are hopefully aware that the Overdrive app is slowly making its farewell tour. And we want to make sure that everyone knows that the only place the app is still available is from the Kindle store. We're excited about the new Libby updates that are on the horizon, which include messaging to patrons and more accessibility improvements. Finally, this is so exciting. Really happy that I get to present this part. Overdrive recently announced the forthcoming Overdrive Hub. This will include 3 components. The first is the newsroom. This is where libraries, so anybody with an Advantage account will be able to share service announcements, branch updates, programming, author talks, surveys, fundraising activities, and other library programs within Libby. So this is something that we've been waiting for a very long time. And I have to give props to Melody because she asks at every single Overdrive check-in, when can we get messaging in Libby? And now it will be here. And we're not supposed to say this, but I do believe that this will be coming by the end of 3rd quarter. And if not 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. Because that'll at least give, but please don't quote me. Public record. The second piece of the hub is the loop. This is going to provide new charts, reports, dashboards of the library's digital collection activity. One of these things will be the Advantage PAR report, so people can compare themselves to other libraries. But also the patron interest dashboard was just released. And this is sort of a back end tool for libraries to be able to look more in depth at what their patrons are reading, what they want. And then lastly, Overdrive's making improvements to Marketplace, which is the purchasing catalog for libraries, as you know. Improvements include a one-stop collection development tool that will display all of the lending models and prices in one location, easier to read. In addition, as you know, we have not been able to accommodate patron recommendations in Libby. That will be incorporated into one of these. I think it's probably the Loop. And they will be pushing out. I don't know if any of you use the magazine sort of push tool now. So if you're reading a serial, you can actually get a notification from Libby that your issue is ready. That will be in place for authors and titles as well. So when new titles from authors that you prefer to read are available, they will push out a notification. Well, I have it. Back over to Mel.
Well, that's actually all we have. And so I know there are quite a few people online and in the room. So if anyone has any information that they want to share or, share a story or request, you have the full board's ears. But also if you just have any questions in general or anyone in the room as well, we'll just open it up to questions, comments, stories.
No question. Can you tell me a little bit more, Sarah, about the messaging thing where you say like libraries can put, like, is that each individual public library or will that be?
It's any library or system that has an advantage.
Okay,
Because it'll be tied to the advantage.
Okay.
That's a great
so I
question.
wonder, okay. Great, thank you.
And if anyone has one online, I have the chat up, but feel free to also to just unmute yourself and talk. I want to see how the speakers work.
I'll fill a little space. This is Gina from Northern Waters. And last year at this time, we were talking about Canopy and Overdrive coming together. And I think we were all really hopeful that something there might happen, but there's no talk of that as far as that service being available through Overdrive.
Yeah, yes. Canopy is actually part of Overdrive. And there is a first of all, there's a discount.
Yep, and was that because of that merger?
Yes, I think it's a combination of the rep that we have.
Okay, that's the story I wanted to hear.
Who understands how Wisconsin libraries work as systems as opposed to individual libraries. And actually there is a process right now where they will be Overdrive, will be removing the videos that we as the shared collection have from Overdrive. Remember at one time, many years ago, we purchased videos. Those will be removed, actually. I don't think they're transferred over to Canopy because that's a totally different, streaming versus the the purchase individual videos. But one thing, if I can mention, does that answer your question about Canopy?
Yeah, I just wanted to hear more about it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's sort of happening now. Along with this, we know that this affects Bridges. Bridges, I know, has some local content videos that have been uploaded. And we have talked to Overdrive to make sure that Bridges is able to move those videos, at least retain access and get them off of Overdrive. And actually I have some information for you, Melanie, about there's a possibility that Recollection Wisconsin might be able to post those videos for you. So I believe that Bridges is the only system that this affects, but if you do have local content videos, we can help you, and if you can just let the project managers know, via email. Pick that up. Thanks, Gina.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? Anyone online?
So when would you need to know if we do the local content videos?
You know, I don't remember what the sunset date is. It's not
Tomorrow.
It's not imminent.
Okay.
And we actually are meeting with Overdrive tomorrow, and make sure that they check again.
Yeah, we've requested that they actually pull all of them for us, so we
Okay.
know. So if you don't know, hopefully we'll know and can reach
Yes,
out to
okay,
you.
yes.
But just on case, on the off chance that you're like, oh, yes, we have a collection.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, thank you for,
Yeah.
yeah. So the burden is really sort of on us right now.
Okay.
And I feel you kind of know if you put something locally in there because it wasn't in free.
Yeah, so there's one of my libraries that I check with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll make sure to ask. Sure.
Hey, Sarah or Melody,
Yeah.
that last set of questions didn't come through really clearly. Can you just recap what that was?
Yes, there was a question as to the deadline, when libraries would need to let us know if they think they have local content videos in Overdrive. And the answer is, we are meeting with Overdrive tomorrow. We've requested a list of any the actual videos, and then we could identify them by system or library.
Any other thoughts? Does anyone have anything they want to share or? Jen?
So this is the annual meeting, so I'm a big believer in celebrating success. I think this was an awesome presentation, really well organized. We have an amazing, robust collaboration in WPLC among our systems and just a fabulous project management. Will's as partners for this consortium that is growing and finding new ways to create collaborations. I just want to celebrate this. It's so exciting, having been involved in this now for 15 years, to see where we come, and Will's they're tremendous partners.
Thank you. We're excited too. We talk about, well, that could be a WPLC thing all the time. Yeah, David.
I can jump on the gratitude train that Jeff has started. I'd also like to thank the volunteer members of our digital steering committee and the collection development committee and the selectors who do not all of the work, but a lot of work for no recompense, because they believe in the project and are helping us all out. So thank you to the committee members and to all those volunteers.
Thank you. Selectors, I feel like don't get enough credit. They do a lot of work.
And believe it or not, the bylaws work group was fun. It was fun for me.
That was a lot of work this year. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we want to end the annual meeting and take a break.
Sure. So thank you, Melody and Sarah and everybody for the presentation, and Vicki from South Central, Abby from McWanago, and everybody else. Appreciate your time. We'll take a 5-ish minute break if anyone needs to stop at a restroom or anything, and then we'll go into the WPLC board meeting.
That'll be fun too.